Kia ora koutou, ko Nikki Corbishley tōku ingoa. My name is Nikki and I'm one of the DPs of Curriculum here at Wellington College. We have created a toolkit for whānau around NCEA because we recognise that there is a lot of information out there and we want to support you in navigating this space with your young people. So we will talk you through our 10 key areas that have been informed by your questions and your inquiries around NCEA. And we'll begin with what NCEA is. NCEA is a national qualification for senior secondary school students that is taught around the country. It is administered by NZQA and we find it to be a really great, robust and engaging system. The beauty of NCEA is that it is highly flexible. It is engaging for students because teachers are able to construct and design courses that best suits the interests of and the strengths of the students. I am a visual arts teacher and I have always found it really great to work in this system. The work that the students create are authentic to them, and it is awesome to see students achieve and meet their personal goals in this way. NCEA is structured as you see here. Typically, it looks like this. Occasionally, there will be students who might move through the system in different ways. So, for example, a Year 10 student might complete a Level 1 standard in mathematics, or a Year 12 student might complete NCEA Level 2 certificate over 2 years. And again, that is the flexibility of NCEA that enables students to meet their goals in their own unique ways. Each student is eligible for a record of achievement, and they can obtain these from NZQA at the end of an NCEA year. On this record of achievement, you can see that it is a list of standards that the students have performed within, and then on the right hand side you can see the credits that the students obtained from completing those standards and the grades that were awarded based on their efforts. So we're going to be talking a little bit more about this now. So what are standards? In each subject, skills and knowledge are assessed against a number of standards. Standards are like building blocks of learning that all contribute to a greater understanding of the topic or of the subject that the student is working within. It is really important that students do not view standards as something that is completed for credits. So each standard has a number of credits that are attached to it. And occasionally students can find themselves caught up in the mindset of counting credits as a focus, as opposed to focusing on the learning and the skills that they are acquiring from those standards. So again, it is really important that the focus is about academic growth. Schools use a range of internal and external assessments to measure how well students meet these standards. And you will hear quite often your young people referring to their work as internals and externals. This is the jargon that we are quite familiar with here at school. So internals are standards that are assessed internally, so within the school by the teachers and departments of Wellington College. Externals are standards that are assessed outside of Wellington College, and these normally take the form of the NCEA examinations and the folios. When a student has completed a standard, that they are then assessed against achieved merit or excellence based on the marking criteria of that standard. Should a student not fulfill the criteria of that standard, then they will receive a not achieved. This is an example of marking criteria for a history standard, and this is very typical in the format of what marking criteria would look like. The teacher will support the students in understanding what the criteria means, because it can be, a little bit challenging. Some of the language can be challenging to understand at first, and it is really important that students have clarity on what is expected in terms of what is required for the standard, so that they can take true ownership over their own success. So how many credits are required? When a student achieves a standard, they gain a number of credits. Students must achieve a certain number of credits to gain an NCEA certificate. So for Level 1 certificate, it is 80 credits. What we see for level 2 and level 3 is that it also requires 80 credits to achieve that certificate. However, if level 1 has been successfully completed and the 80 credits have been awarded, then 20 of those credits will carry over into level 2. Again, if at level 2 the student has achieved 80 credits, then 20 of those credits will carry over into level 3. So this means that at level 2 and level 3, students start from a number of 20 credits to begin the year, and this is a really motivating thing for students to continue to build upon. It is also really worth highlighting that all subjects offer between 14 to 22 credits. And so this means that if a student is taking 6 subjects, that they can easily attain well over 80 credits, sometimes 100 plus credits. But students do not need to be aiming to gain well over 80 credits. They need to be focusing on the quality of their work and the learning involved in the work. So rather than focusing on credit counting as kind of their main goal, it is more about really understanding what they are learning and making the most out of those assessment opportunities. It's also worth noting that at level 1, as part of those 80 credits, students need to gain 10 literacy credits and 10 numeracy credits. And I'm going to pass over now to my colleague Erin, who is going to talk about that more in depth now. Kia ora.
Kia ora. My name is Erin Columbus. I am the DP Teaching and Learning here at Wellington College. I'm going to speak to you about literacy and numeracy credits, endorsements, and examinations. As Nikki was saying, for a student to gain level 1 NCEA, they do need to gain at least 80 credits, and 10 of those 80 credits need to be literacy, and 10 of those 80 credits need to be numeracy. Literacy credits are based on reading, writing, speaking, and listening skills, and numeracy credits are based on number, measurement, and statistical skills. The key thing, the very important thing to be aware of, is that a student cannot gain any levels of NCEA without meeting these base numeracy and literacy requirements. There are many opportunities at level 1 to gain those credits. Literacy credits do not solely come through English, and numeracy credits do not solely come through mathematics. They in fact come from a very wide variety of specified standards. For example, I teach history, and in level 1 history there are 6 achievement standards, 3 internals and 3 externals, and all 6 of those achievement standards carry literacy credits. Level 1 physics, 4 of the 5 achievement standards carry numeracy credits, and 1 of those achievement standards carries literacy. Endorsements. There are 2 types of endorsements. One of those relates to a certificate endorsement, and the other relates to course endorsement. For a certificate endorsement, this is where for level 1 NCEA, for example, you can gain merit or excellence, which recognises your achievement. In order to gain excellence at level 1 NCEA, you need to gain at least 50 credits at that excellence level. Likewise, to have a merit endorsement at level 1 NCEA, at least 50 of the credits need to be merit or excellence credits. I think a really important thing to be aware of here at Wellington College is that success looks very different for each and every one of our students. We're really focused on the idea of personal excellence. So for some students, their success is measured by an excellence endorsement for level 1 NCEA, but that is certainly not the case and should not be the case as a perception for all students. It very much is about the goals and aspirations that are set at the beginning of the year, this idea of personal excellence. That endorsement award will show on the record of achievement that Nikki was speaking about earlier. The other type of endorsement is that which is applied to a specific course. So, for example, again, level 1 history, in order to gain a merit or excellence endorsement for level 1 history, 14 or more credits need to be at that merit or excellence level, and at least 3 of those credits do need to come from an externally assessed standard. The other thing to remember there is that there is no such thing as a traditional pass in an NCEA subject. If a student wishes to gain entry to a course at level 2 or 3, and they perhaps haven't done, for example, level 1 history, but they would like to pick level 2 history up in their year 12 year, by discussions with the HOD and tutors and families, they will be able to progress to that. Examinations, we have 2 types of examinations here at Wellington College. Derived grade or school examinations and NCEA examinations. First thing to mention there, really important, is the special assessment conditions that are available to any of our young people with learning needs when they are sitting a timed assessment. This takes many forms. That might be via computer use, a reader-writer being allocated to them for a timed assessment, rest breaks, or extra time. If your young person does have particular learning needs, then contact the Learning Support Department and discuss what provisions can be made for them in those timed assessments. Okay, derived grade school examinations. These are done in term 3. They are set and run and marked internally by the teachers here at Wellington College. They are very important for a number of reasons. They provide a practice opportunity for our students ahead of the NCEA exams in term 4. So they're very much focused on preparations for those examinations, but also very importantly, they do provide a derived grade in a situation where a student misses an exam, perhaps by illness, perhaps due to some unforeseen event. The grade that they gained in the school examination, the derived grade examination, will be one of the pieces of evidence that will be used to provide a grade for them, having missed the actual assessment. So it's a very important round of examinations that take place in level 3. In term 4, we have the actual NCEA examinations. They are held here at school, but they are run by NZQA and not by teachers. Some of those exams or assessments are digital, but most are still handwritten. In the event that your young person has an exam that is being done in a digital form, they will have an opportunity to practice in that form during the derived grade school examinations in term 3. But at the moment, most of those exams are still handwritten. There are a number of logistical things that students do need to think about going into those exams, mainly relating to entry slips that they need to bring with them to each and every exam. We do provide them with that and information prior to those examinations commencing in term 4, but a level of self-management required in their approach to those examinations. New Zealand Scholarship. Scholarship sits outside of the NCEA examinations. This is assessed separately at the end of the year. It is open to any student. Usually year 13s will attempt this. We do have a lot of year 12s at Wellington College who do attempt the scholarship examinations. They are very challenging. They are very rewarding as an experience. It really does draw on high-level critical thinking, the ability to synthesize and apply knowledge, skills, understanding, and ideas to complex situations. We do have a handful of year 11s each year in particular subjects that do attempt scholarship, so they are open to everyone. Preparation for those for any student that is interested in attempting a scholarship examination for a particular subject, they do occur outside of timetabled lessons. Usually there is an allocated person in each learning area who will facilitate those sessions. They are open to any students to attend. As I said, they are very rewarding, they are very challenging, and they do carry a financial incentive. So for every scholarship gained, $500 is received by the student. One thing to think about with NCEA is the high level of student agency which exists within the system. So at level 1, as we've said, a student is required to gain at least 80 level 1 credits. The reality is that students have far more credits than 80 available to them. A student might have anywhere between 100 and 120 credits that they will attempt. So when it comes to the externals at the end of the year, that's usually a situation where a student is very clear on how many credits they might need in a particular subject or overall for the qualification to reach their goals, their aspirations. And it might be that they're entered for 3 externals and they might decide that they only need to attempt one of those externals. They only require one of those externals to meet their goal in a particular subject. So we talked earlier about the beauty of NCEA, so that's an aspect of the flexibility which exists in it with the number of credits that are available. This is something that we probably see a little more in Year 12 and we certainly see at Year 13. Departments do anticipate this to a degree and work with students to enter them for the standards that they feel that they might best perform in and the standards that might best benefit their overall goals and aspirations for NCEA. So the example there, Angus has gained 12 internal credits in physics for merit A excellence. He does need an excellence course endorsement for his desired university course. He might be entered for 3 externals at the end of the year. And he might decide that he's only going to sit 2 of those. He will still have the full 3 hours available to him. So that is the student agency, which we see exercised within NCEA here at Wellington College. Thank you very much. I'll now pass you over to Lucy Lendrum.
Kia ora, I'm Lucy, and I'm going to talk you through some of our assessment procedures here at Wellington College. Apologies, you might be able to hear rugby practice, which is going on just outside my window. So the first thing is that you might be asking or wondering how we can ensure that our assessment processes are really fair for all students, particularly when, teachers are marking their students' work. And the answer to that is that we have a really clear moderation process. So typically for an assessment, teachers who are going to be marking will meet. They'll agree what we call benchmarks, where they look at exemplars from NZQA of work at each level, achieved, merit and excellence, to be really clear on what's required to meet that standard. They go away and do their marking, and then typically a percentage of students' work is checkmarked by someone else, so we'll send off often borderline work to be really clear that we're all marking at the same standard. So, it will be checked by another teacher, by the panel leader, or by the HOD. Also, each year, NZQA requests a certain amount of work to be sent to them for moderation. That's done by the national moderator. So there's a number of sort of processes in place to ensure that we're marking consistently and fairly across the country. Even though we do have these things in place to ensure that our marking process is really robust, there are occasions where the wrong grade might be awarded to a student, and in that event, they do have the opportunity to appeal for their grade to be reconsidered. We do ask that students do this in a timely manner, and we ask them to complete that form within 5 working days, 5 school days of getting that grade back. In the first instance, if students are unhappy with their grade, we really encourage them to speak to their class teacher. And in my experience, 8 times out of 10, the teacher's able to explain to the student the reason for the grade and satisfy them that it was a fair result. If the student still thinks that they've met the criteria for a higher result, then there's a form on our website that they can complete. And I've been really impressed in the past in my work in the English department where I've seen, really thoughtful and considerate appeals from students explaining why their work does meet that higher criteria. It's not a hugely widespread thing, but it is important that students know that they do have this opportunity, that there's a process there, and we really encourage students to take ownership of this. It's a really great learning and practice for them. Similarly, we have processes for when students are absent or they don't submit work. I mean, the main thing there is that we can't award credit for work where students haven't sat the assessment. So if students are absent, then depending on the reason for the absence, there might be some sort of alternative that can be arranged, such as sitting the assessment on a different day, a whole different assessment opportunity. It really depends on the reasons for the absence, and there's a list of possible alternatives that are on our website. In the event of a non-submission, you should be notified by the class teacher that your young person has not submitted an assessment. But in the event that they've been given adequate opportunity to achieve that standard, like they've been in class for the work, then a not achieved grade has to be awarded. There are, of course, circumstances where students will qualify for an extension, and in that event, there's an application form that is available on our website. It can be a little bit tricky there because students can sometimes, for example, have more than one assessment that's due on the same day. And typically, because they're notified of that well in advance, we don't really consider that to be a good reason to ask for an extension. And we want to support students to be self-managing and organise their time to ensure that they can meet those deadlines. But of course, in any situation, we really encourage students to reach out to their subject teacher, reach out to the HOD, and we will be able to offer support and guidance. In terms of assessment opportunities, typically there's only one opportunity per standard per year. There are some exceptions to this though, but that will be indicated from the start of the year in the course outline, course booklet, course guide. It's called different things in different subjects. So students should know from the outset whether this opportunity is the only one or whether there's going to be another opportunity. There's also something slightly different to that, which is called a resubmission. A resubmission is actually something very specific, which is when students hand in an assessment and they get a not achieved result for a very small reason. They might have missed, made a sort of a silly error or missed something very small, something typically that they are capable of discovering on their own. And in that case, the assessment may be eligible for what we call a resubmission. And students have an opportunity to go away and fix that up, hand it back in, and get a passing grade. The maximum grade that can be achieved by resubmission is an achieved, and that is actually something that's a guideline that comes from NZQA. That's not a specific Wellington College requirement. But once again, not every standard is, has the resubmission option available. It will depend, and that should be indicated by subjects at the start of the year so students know which are available and which aren't. There are also occasions where there are breaches of the rules, and it is impressed upon students regularly that all the work that they hand in for assessment must be their own work. And we are working with students all the time to help them navigate this, their information literacy in this world where they, have vast amounts of information at their fingertips, to help them understand what constitutes plagiarism and how they can sort of protect themselves in that space. One really easy thing that students can do to sort of prove the legitimacy of their work is that they can do their work on a Google Doc. The reason why we recommend that is that it then records the editing history, so they can prove all the times that they've gone into that document and added bits of information over the sort of week or two that they were working on that assessment. So that's one small thing that they can do. Similarly, keeping all evidence such as notes or drafts or planning. If there is a breach or a suspected breach, then typically the HOD will consult with Nikki and me and will determine an appropriate response to that depending on what's happened. So moving on now to COVID disruptions, you might be aware that in previous years, in 2020 and 2021, NZQA made some provisions because there were these extended lockdowns that really caused significant disruption to learning. That included moving exams later. Nikki has talked about credits and how they're earned. And in the last couple of years, for every 5 credits that students earned, they were given an extra sort of a bonus credit to help them reach their 80 and sort of acknowledge the disruption that they had faced. At this stage of the year, it's looking pretty unlikely that anything like that will be provided by NZQA. They are constantly monitoring the situation, and certainly they will adjust that if there is a need. But at this stage, if things continue the way that they're going at the moment, I think it's highly unlikely. And we just wanted to flag this because we don't want students to be reliant on getting those extra credits to get the qualifications that they might need by the end of 2022. Finally, what support can we provide as a school and as Whānau to help our young people achieve their personal best in this space? So the first thing is help with planning and time management. Particularly our Year 11 students can sometimes get overwhelmed, when they have multiple deadlines at once, and helping them to plan out their work can be a really wonderful way to support them. If you're wondering about assessment deadlines, those are typically available in Google Classroom or in course outlines, which they will have received at the start of the year. One caveat there is that sometimes these deadlines do shift, and normally that is in response to student need, and it is a wonderful part of the beauty of NCEA that we can be flexible in that space. So we do, ask that you sort of bear with us sometimes when those things do shift, and just, keep in touch with teachers again if the shifting of that deadline becomes an issue. Similarly, the exam timetable, our WC exam timetable will be available on the website in Term 3, and the NZQA timetable is already up on the NZQA website. Also, you can sign up to receive the Guardian summary in your young person's Google Classroom, which will just give a kind of an outline of deadlines or things that are upcoming. The most important thing is really to keep the lines of communication open, particularly with your young person's tutor teacher. They can provide really valuable guidance and oversight. They can email around subject teachers to see what progress is being made. They can also offer guidance around course selection and other pathways, which is especially valuable. We've talked a bit about the flexibility of NZQA, and that means that it offers all sorts of pathways for students that are looking at doing all sorts of different things when they leave school, and the tutor teacher can really help with making those decisions. Similarly, you can keep an eye on attendance and keep track of which credits have been gained through the parent portal. I'll just move up myself so that you can see the rest of that slide a little more easily. And if you need help logging on to the parent portal, our office staff are able to assist you with that. And finally, there's a large number of people here at Wellington College who are able to support our young people. In terms of academic requirements, what's required for assessments, the best person to talk to is the subject teacher. They'll be able to, clarify what's required for a particular assessment, what the marking schedule means, what the due date is, all of that stuff. And the HOD is also able to offer that oversight and advice. The tutor teacher, as I said, can offer that more general support and has that pastoral oversight of how students are doing, across these subjects, and can connect you with various people in the school that might be useful for you to talk to. And once again, I want to reiterate that they're a really helpful person to talk to about subject selection, and you'll have the opportunity to do that at tutor conferences later this year. The deans similarly can offer that overall sort of wellbeing and pastoral support. We're also really fortunate to have our Pacific and Māori mentors who are able to, support our young people with any aspect of their schooling. And Jyoti and Louise also offer study sessions on a regular basis that students can attend for that extra support. Some of you will have questions about requirements for things like overseas universities, and the Careers Advisor is a great starting point there to answer those questions. Of course, we have our guidance counsellors who can support with anxiety or any other issues such as that. And learning support, as we mentioned earlier in the presentation, can offer support for those who may have some additional learning needs. And finally, myself and Nikki and Aaron are really happy to be available to answer any questions that you have or offer any support. So thank you very much for taking the time to watch this presentation. Once again, if you've got questions, please do be in touch. We're really happy to help, and we appreciate that NCEA is pretty complex. It's got a lot of jargon associated with it that we use really regularly in our school day and kind of become accustomed to. But we're very happy to spend time explaining it to you. Thanks again for watching, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you in person at parent-teacher interviews or some other occasion on site soon. Thanks a lot. Nā te wā.